Yeah, we are continuing the cyber law in Uganda. Consider this season 2 or volume 2. I was just trying to describe a course descriptor of sorts. Cyber law in terms of development, evolution, in terms of the key concepts, in terms of cyberspace, then in terms of cyber crime and law enforcement, in terms of the different types of crime, by the way. Then we needed to also talk about investigations and prosecutions of cyber crimes, and then aspects to do with legal and ethical issues in terms of cyber crime investigations. Also importantly is what we call data protection and privacy, where we have to talk about things to do with data protection principles, aspects to do with privacy rights in terms of cyberspace, and then data breach notifications in terms of the laws. And then another thing that we may want to include is intellectual property in terms of the digital age, where we may want to talk about things like copyright and digital content, trademarks, and even domain names, and then patent and technology as well. And this is in terms of the course descriptor for the Faculty of Law. Then you may want to talk about e-commerce as another module, perhaps, in terms of consumer protection, online contracts, and even electronic signatures. And then consumer rights and online transactions, for example, and the regulatory framework for e-commerce. That becomes important. Then you also may want to talk about things like internet governance and international aspects. By the way, all these things are provided for in our book. I've also developed a course descriptor, by the way, that I think is readily available online. So in terms of internet governance organizations, in terms of international cybersecurity, things like ECAN, and then agreements and treaties, and then jurisdictional challenge in terms of cyberspace. And as another module, you may want to talk about things like cybersecurity and risk management, cybersecurity best practices, for example, and then legal and regulatory framework for cybersecurity, and incident response and business continuity. Another may want to talk about is emerging technologies and ethical issues. Here, basically AI and the machine learning, blockchain and cryptocurrencies, and then the Internet of Things and smart devices. I've written books on all those areas, and then ethical consideration in terms of technological development. Please find those books at Lubogo and suigeneris.com and any major library in this country. And also, so that's extremely important, because that will create a substantive foundation for our students, and even for those of you who are interested in taking a journey in terms of cyber law or cyber related issues or cyber policies, in terms of advantage to you for your knowledge, for your exposure, because as I said, these are things that we are facing today, and there is no doubt that we are going to rely on them for the rest of our lives. The world is changing at a supersonic speed. People are talking about things like hypersonic missiles, everything is changing, robotics, AI, talk about chat, GPT and the likes, all those things are changing, and we just have to understand that the world is moving at a very, very fast rate. There is no more difference now between what can be done in the third world and what can be done in the so-called first world. So it's important that we canvass and prepare ourselves in terms of cyber law for this country, but more importantly for our students. So I would like to be a drum major in encouraging each one of us to have a serious consideration of some of those aspects in terms of objectives that we need to comprehend in terms of assessment, and in terms of recommendations for purposes of a comprehensive cyber law policy, or even mandate for this country. This becomes crucial. This knowledge is necessary. It will enhance our skills. It will help us navigate the complex legal landscapes in terms of cyberspace as well. So when we create that in our law schools, but also importantly in our country, I think we shall be in tandem. We shall be able to work almost at the same pace with some of these countries that are claimed to be a little bit ahead of us. The difference now is not going to be so much in terms of in terms of physical structure, but in terms of digital technology. That's where the difference is going to come. You go to America, you find people doing multi-million things in a very small room, but it's used as a command center to almost control the entire world. So as I said, cyber law and its relevancy becomes very important. Development and in terms of evolution is important for us. Legal concepts in terms of cyberspace becomes extremely important. As I said, we need to understand the different types of cyber crimes, hacking, identity, in terms of theft, etc. Investigations in terms of prosecution of these crimes becomes extremely important. Ethical issues in terms of cyber crime prevention and investigation becomes extremely important. And then data protection and privacy in terms of data protection principles, or even the privacy rights in terms of cyberspace. Data breach notification in terms of the laws becomes extremely important. And then the aspects of intellectual property in terms of the digital age, as I told you, where we will argue things to do with copyright and digital content, trademarks and domain names, and then patents and technology becomes extremely important. Please, I just cannot overemphasize issues to do with e-commerce, consumer protection, online contracts and electronic signatures, consumer rights and online transactions, regulatory frameworks for e-commerce. I mean, no debate over these issues. This is where the world is going. In terms of internet governance, in terms of international aspects, internet governance organizations like ICANN and ITU become extremely relevant for us. International cybersecurity in terms of the agreements, in terms of the treaties, in terms of jurisdictional challenges, in terms of cyberspace becomes extremely important. We cannot underestimate things like cybersecurity and risk management. Cyber security, for example, in terms of best practices, in terms of legal, for example, but also more importantly, the regulatory frameworks that govern cybersecurity. And then instant responses in terms of business continuity become extremely important. Then also, I cannot neglect things like emerging technologies. As I say, to me, those are the icing on the cake. You know, the AI and machine learning, the blockchain and cryptocurrencies, the IoT, Internet of Things, and then the smart devices. I have written books on those areas. I cannot say that on and on, but please take the privilege of finding out some of those issues. They would greatly, and these books are readily available and free of charge. Consider it a gift from us to you, from suigeneris to you. Then special topics in terms of legal practitioners, experts, as I said, relating to law issues and the trends, and then things to do with project presentations that have to do with cyber evaluations as well. Those become extremely important. So for those of you who want to take the beauty of engaging in these cyber-related courses, find a substantive law school perhaps, or even substantive institutions where you can be able to engage in terms of these issues. As I say, this is an advocacy for some kind of emphasis for law schools in our country to emphasize and forget a little bit about nugatory course units that have been overridden by events, and adapt course units that would help shape our country and our students, accommodate them, give them more practical skills, make them more user-friendly, more relatable in terms of the trends that are taking place. The world is moving at a very fast rate, and we cannot just simply ignore the rate at which the digital age is taking over. This is part of the future, and as I said, it's no more about structures. It's no more really structures, yes, but not so much about where you are. It's now what you have in terms of what will help you to navigate through all these terrains that the world has actually done provided for us. I will go through a little bit of a breakdown, because I know we're considering this as the second edition of the talk that we had on cyber, so that we can avoid extremely long talks because of the importance as well, because of the importance of the subject. So I break down some of them, especially in terms of Uganda's context, why and how it can be done. People may want some of the things to be done, but they may not know the how. So I'm trying to break down in terms of the how we can accommodate and put some of the things, especially in terms of emerging areas. In terms of the emerging areas, to me that's where my focus would want to be. In terms of emerging areas, and under that we talk about artificial intelligence and machine learning. As AI technologies advance, Uganda should consider regulations and guidelines for the AI use, addressing issues like algorithmic bias and the liability for AI decisions, and the protection of intellectual property related to AI invasions. Find my book of Legal Personhood. We make those arguments as well. Even the future lawyer, we make advocates as well for that. Blockchain and cryptocurrencies. within the growing interest of the blockchain and cryptocurrencies, Uganda may need to establish regulatory frameworks in terms of digital assets, in terms of initial coin offerings, for example, and blockchain-based contracts. I have written a book on that as well. And then the Internet of Things, which I wrote while I was in Germany. The prohibition of the Internet of Things raises concerns about data privacy, in terms of security, in terms of liability. Uganda should explore regulations for the Internet of Things in terms of manufacturers, in terms of data protection, in terms of the ecosystem, and also cyber security standards for the connected devices. And then cyber security standards, developing and enforcing what they call cyber security standards becomes crucial and very, to protect our critical infrastructure in terms of sensitive data. Uganda should keep pace with international cyber security standards and promote what they call best practices. And then data localization and sovereignty. The concept of data localization may arise in terms of requiring laws that actually determine where data can be stored and even processed. So Uganda should consider this approach in terms of data sovereignty and what they call cross-border data flows. Another issue that is important is what they call digital identity and biometrics. As digital identity and in terms of systems and biometrics, authentication becomes more prevalent, Uganda should establish substantive legal frameworks for responsible use of biometric data and secure what they call digital identity systems. That becomes extremely important. And another thing is online disinformation, okay, and deep fakes. Now addressing the spread of what they call fake news or deep fakes and the disinformation campaigns becomes essential in terms of maintaining the integrity of digital information. So Uganda may need to regulations and mechanisms to combat these threats as well. And then the issue of quantum computing, for example. While it's still in its infancy, quantum computing poses what they call potential cybersecurity challenges. So Uganda should monitor advancements in terms of quantum computing and their implications for what they call decryption and cybersecurity. That becomes important. And then aspects to do with cross-border crime, cyber crimes, collaboration with what they call international law enforcement as different agencies in terms of adherence to international cybercrime threats becomes crucial in terms of combating what they call cross-border cybercrime effectively. And then digital governance, enhancing digital governance in terms of ensuring that government services are actually secure and that are accessible and use what they call user-friendly in terms of their importance. So this includes regulations in terms of e-government initiatives and also digital services delivery. Then there is another favorite called the 5G technology. I was in Europe and everyone's home now is being connected to 5G. So the rollout of 5G networks introduces new opportunities and risks in terms of cybersecurity and data protection. So Uganda should address these challenges in terms of promotion of a secure 5G infrastructure. And this is not a conspiracy theory. I know there are challenges with 5G, but 5G is extremely, extremely important. What 4G can do in a second, 5G can do in a microsecond. Cyber insurance is another aspect. Cyber insurance among businesses can also help to mitigate financial impact in terms of cyber incidents, and Uganda can consider incentives in terms of regulation of what they call cyber insurance coverage. And then aspects to do with legal framework for incident response, for example. We need to establish clear legal procedures for incident responses in terms of in the events of cyber attacks, in terms of data breaches, also other cyber security incidences become extremely, extremely essential. Another important aspect is ethical hacking and what they call bug bounty programs, where we encourage encouraging ethical hacking and bug bounty programs can actually provide cyber security. So Uganda should consider legal protections in terms of incentives for ethical hackers. And then cloud computing and data security. As cloud services become more prevalent, Uganda should ensure that data stored in its cloud is adequately protected and that legal frameworks address what they call cloud-specific challenges. So these emerging areas reflect the changing digital landscape and the need for a proactive legal and even regulatory responses in terms of protecting individuals, businesses, and also infrastructure in Uganda's cyberspace. So we need to adapt, we need to collaborate with international cybersecurity initiatives so that we can address these challenges effectively. Okay, please understand that. In terms of other emerging areas, we can look at things to do with remote work and what they call telecommuting. Yeah, so the rise of remote work has also its implications in terms of data protection. in terms of employment contracts, for example, in terms of cybersecurity. So Uganda should explore legal frameworks that actually accommodate remote work while safeguarding what they call data privacy and workers' rights. That is important. Another emerging area is what they call ransomware and cyber extortion. As ransomware attacks continue to increase, someone hacks into you, says if you don't do this, I'm going to do that. If you don't give me that, I'm going to do this. Uganda should consider regulations and responses for dealing with ransomware incidences, including legal measures against ransom payments. Please think about that. In terms of digital health and telemedicine, I cannot overemphasize that. With the expansion of the digital health services and telemedicine, Uganda should address regulatory aspects related to, for example, healthcare data protection, telehealth consultations, and medical record security. Okay? These are emerging areas, and all these, my friends, we have captured and we have talked about them. Aspects to do with cybersecurity education and workforce as a development. Investigating in cybersecurity education and workforce development becomes essential to build a pool of skilled professionals. So Uganda can actually encourage what they call cyber training programs and certification in terms of initiatives. Another aspect that is important is cybersecurity audits and compliance. This will help in terms of regular cybersecurity for audits and for compliance assessments that can help our organizations to identify vulnerabilities, for example. So Uganda may actually consider regulations that require certain industries to undergo cybersecurity assessment periodically. Okay? Talk about the fact that I'm putting everything on your feet. Guys, environmental impact technology, assessing and regulating environmental impact technology, including e-waste management, for example. I'm writing a book on e-waste management right now. So e-waste management and energy consumption in terms of data centers is emerging concern in terms of sustainability and compliance. It's extremely important, my friends. Talk about quantum cryptography. As quantum computing advances, traditional encryption methods may actually become obsolete. So Uganda should explore quantum-resistant encryption standards and strategies for securing a sensitive data, as it were. As I said, talk about artificial intelligence in terms of legal practice. I read my book on Future Lawyer. Look for that robot that was sued for practicing without a practicing certificate. Do not pay. It's called Do Not Pay. And then there's there are others in China that are now presiding over judicial matters. AI tools in terms of legal practice, including contract analysis, legal research, and predictive analysis. We cannot overestimate that. That is the future, my friend, whether you like it or not. Like I keep saying, whether you pray about it or not. Cybersecurity in terms of small and medium enterprises, SMEs often lack resources in terms of robust security measures. So Uganda can develop programs that can assist SMEs in terms of enhancing their cybersecurity posture. Talk about supply chain security. Ensuring that security of the supply chain in terms of critical sectors like healthcare and utilities is essential. So regulations may be needed to secure the digital supply in terms of the chain. Talk about international cybersecurity collaboration. We have to learn to collaborate with our neighboring countries, international partners on cybersecurity initiatives in terms of information sharing, in terms of threat intelligence that can actually enhance our cybersecurity in terms of our capabilities. And cybersecurity awareness and education, as I say, that becomes a super important aspect. With ongoing cybersecurity awareness campaigns and educational programs, these will help in terms of individuals and also organizations. You're going to become more cyber, resilient, as it were. Talk about legal protections for whistleblowers. How about encouraging individuals to report cybersecurity incidences and breaches through what they call legal protections for whistleblowers can actually strengthen the cybersecurity efforts. Talk about privacy by design, in terms of promoting the concept of privacy design, which incorporates data protection in terms of privacy considerations into the development of new technologies and systems. So, my friends, I don't know, I could go on and on and on because these are vital topics. Last time I talked about forensic, today I'm talking about cyber. I'll keep telling you many things about what we need for this country. I think we have what it takes. So these emerging areas and consideration will reflect a dynamic nature in which our digital landscape and the need for a comprehensive legal framework or also regulatory framework to address evolving challenges and opportunities presented by technology and the internet in Uganda. Okay? More emerging areas for avoidance of doubt, you may also want to argue in terms of social media governance, where we're talking about developing regulations in terms of guidelines for responsive use of social media platforms, including addressing issues like hate speech or online harassment and even fake news dissemination. Please, that becomes important. As I said, quantum communication. As quantum technologies advance, laws and regulations related to secure quantum communication systems may be needed to protect sensitive data and communication. Okay? Another one that comes to mind is emerging threats to critical infrastructure. In terms of monitoring and addressing emerging threats to critical infrastructure sectors such as energy, such as water, such as transportation, these will ensure resiliency against cyber attacks, because that's where the worst of the pitch are going to be, you know. Talk about biometric data and what they call facial recognition. You know, legal frameworks for the collection and storage and the use of biometric tag data, including facial recognition, is important in terms of safeguarding individuals' privacy and their rights. That's something, again, that's extremely important. Talk about digital currency and central bank digital currencies, what they call CBDS, okay, in terms of regulations for digital currencies, including CBDS, to ensure the compliance of what they call financial laws and prevent illicit activities. We have written about all these, my friends. Talk about cross-border data transfers in terms of developing legal mechanisms, in terms of agreements for cross-border data transfers that actually create a balance in the free flow of information with data protection and privacy concerns, right? Talk about smart cities and Internet of Things integration. We wrote a book on land law in terms of smart cities, you know. Uganda is not, Kampala is not even a smart city. I'm told they want to convert it. But smart cities and Internet of Things integration, regulation and policies in terms of secure and, you know, privacy conscious development in terms of plastic technologies, and the integration of these IoT devices into urban infrastructure. You know, these are things I'm campaigning for. Talk about data ethics, addressing ethical considerations in terms of data collection, the use and the sharing, including issues related to bias, discrimination, and even algorithm in terms of accountability. Talk about election cybersecurity. I'll say that again, election cybersecurity. Strengthening our cybersecurity to protect electoral processes and campaigns from cyber threats and foreign interferences. That is going to be a big problem for the world. It's already a problem in America and Russia, remember. So that becomes very important. We have learned lessons, you know. Digital accessibility, promoting digital accessibility in terms of standards to ensure online services and content that are accessible to individuals with disabilities as well. You know, creating that fairness. Find my book on the law of disability, you know. Protection in terms of people who are disabled. Cross-border collaboration. We need to encourage cross-border between government agencies, as I said, private sector entities, the academia, civil society, to develop and implement effective cybersecurity strategies, right? And then aspects to do with international trade and cybersecurity, okay? Aligning our trade agreements, for example, even regulations with cybersecurity standards to promote secure international trade. Talk about space law and satellite cybersecurity. I've written a book about space law, okay? Find that book at Lubogo.org or suigeneris.com, or even major bookstores in this country and all major university repositories. So as the satellite technologies advance, regulations protect space assets, satellite communication from cyber threats. Uganda launched, remember? So we should protect in terms of that. Cybersecurity liability and insurance. We need to clarify legal liability for cyber incidents and also promoting the adoption of cyber insurance and also manage risks. Talk about AI regulation. This is important, addressing ethical, legal concerns that are associated with the use of AI. You know, and that's what I also talk about in terms of the future lawyer, my book on future lawyer. Find it in terms of healthcare, in terms of finance, in terms of transportation. And then there's what they call also virtual reality, VR, and augmented reality, which is AR, exploring legal considerations that are related to VR and AR in terms of technologies, including privacy, intellectual property, and content regulation. Extremely important, my friends. I cannot emphasize the importance of cyber law. That's why we have made two versions, quite long but extremely important. Legal tech and AI in terms of legal aspects. Guidelines for the use of legal technology in terms of AI, in terms of law firms, courts, or even legal processes. So these emerging areas underscore the importance of an ongoing adaptation and development of cyber law to address the complex and rapidly changing legal landscape in our country. Legal frameworks and regulation must keep in pace with technological advancement in terms of those associated challenges and opportunities. So effective cyber procedures and laws need to be importantly played out for purposes of enhancing the signal law in terms of shaping those various areas. Okay? E-commerce, as I said, and digital payments is another one. Strong cyber laws must be fostered to help growth of e-commerce by establishing secure online transaction environments. Okay, this has led to innovations in terms of digital payments, for example, systems such as the wallets and cryptocurrencies, as consumers and businesses gain confidence in online transactions. Not so. Another play out has actually been by way of cloud computing, as I told you. Legal frameworks that actually address data protection and cybersecurity that have actually encountered the adaptation of cloud computing services. These services have revolutionized data storage and collaboration and scalability for businesses and individuals. Okay? And then we can argue also in terms of online banking and fintech, where cyber laws and regulations have actually paved a serious way forward in terms of the development of online banking services and fintech innovations. This includes mobile banking apps, for example, peer-to-peer lending platforms, for example, or even what they call robo-advisors that have actually transformed the financial industries. We have so many apps here in Uganda that are doing that, not so. So that we need a law, substantive law in terms of specialty. Healthcare technology, what they call health tech, in terms of robust provisions that have actually been essential for the growth of healthcare innovations, in terms of telemedicine, in terms of electronic health records, in terms of wearable health services or devices, wearable health devices, and remote patient monitoring systems that have become more secure and widely adapted due to legal safeguards for sensitive health data. Talk about smart cities. Just told you that. Look for that book, Land Law, Emerging Land Law in Uganda by Lubogo still, the latest in terms of land law. In terms of legal frameworks for securing what they call the Internet of Things devices and data smart cities that have driven innovation in urban planning and infrastructure. Smart city initiatives should include things like traffic management, energy efficiency, waste management, and more. All this should be made possible by having a sound cyber regulation that is broad and robust. Talk about digital identity solution, cyber laws that address privacy, for example, and data protection that have enabled innovations in digital identity solutions. These include biometric, for example, authentication and sovereign identity, and secure online identity verification for various devices. I cannot emphasize cryptocurrency and blockchain technology in terms of legal clarity for purposes of cryptocurrency and blockchain space that have spurred innovations in decentralized finances, for example, and non-fungible tokens, for example, and blockchain applications beyond cryptocurrencies, such as the supply chain tracking and reporting systems. That's the future, my friend. That's the future. We just cannot let it go. Cybersecurity industry, cybersecurity laws, regulations that have led to the growth of cybersecurity in terms of the industry itself, in terms of innovation, in terms of threat detection, in terms of intrusion prevention, in terms of incident response technology that have actually arisen to counter these cyber threats. Okay? How about space exploration and satellite technology? As I said, we need a law that governs satellite cybersecurity to influence facilitated innovations in satellite technology and space exploration. You launched the satellite. You better get yourself prepared. Secure satellite communication and navigation systems that are essential for space emissions and even terrestrial applications. Think about that. How about education and ed tech? Okay, effective cyber provisions in terms of the education sector will have, significantly paved the way for online learning and what they call ed tech innovations, learning management systems, virtual classrooms, personalized learning platforms that are becoming an integral part of the education system. Okay, then legal tech. In terms of the legal tech industry that has grown in response of cyber laws and regulations, offering solutions for what they call legal research and document management. I'm finishing. So these technologies streamline what they call legal processes in terms of improving the access to legal services. I just can't emphasize that. How about cyber insurance? The development of cyber insurance products in terms of services that have actually been driven by the need to manage cyber risk effectively. Cyber provisions have actually encouraged the innovation in terms of this sector, providing businesses with financial protection against cyber incidents. Man, I just don't know what to say. Cyber is itself sui generis. Effective cyber provisions and legal frameworks will create a secure, predictable environment that encourages technological innovation and adoption. So we need to establish rules and safeguards. These laws should help us build trust among businesses, among consumers, among innovators, and ultimately help us to drive an advancement in terms of the various fields around the world. Okay? If I may give you some specific examples around the world that illustrate how effective cyber provisions have actually changed. I would give, for example, beginning with the European Union's General Data Protection Regulation, what they call the GDPR. The GDPR has actually transformed data privacy and protection globally. It has prompted businesses worldwide, for example, to reassess their data handling practices in terms of resulting in greater transparency. It has improved what they call consent mechanism and increased accountability. The GDPR has actually set a precedent for data protection laws globally and has actually empowered individuals to have greater control over their personal data. Think about that. I'll give another example. There's what they call the Singapore Cybersecurity Act. That one, Singapore's Cybersecurity Act has actually established a legal framework for managing and responding to cybersecurity threats. It has enhanced the country's reliance to cyber attacks, for example, and facilitated the development of a robust cybersecurity ecosystem, making Singapore a global hub for cybersecurity and innovation services. I'll give you another example. The Californian Consumer Privacy Act, what they call the CCPA, has introduced stringent data privacy regulations in terms of in the US, and has driven companies to implement new privacy practices and has provided consumers with more control over their data and has sparked similar legislation in the US and other states, emphasizing the importance of data in terms of the digital age. I'll give you another example. Benchmarking. That's this aspect we're doing in terms of benchmarking. Perhaps government should engage some of us and we begin benchmarking for them in some of these jurisdictions. So South Korea, for example, in terms of personal information protection, what they call the PIPA. PIPA has actually stringent requirements for data protection and has influenced South Korea's tech industry to develop secure data handling practices. It has also shaped South Korea's role in terms of international data protection discussions. Yeah? Another one is Australia's notable data breaches, what they call the NDB. It's a scheme, right? Where this legal provision mandates the reporting of certain data breaches. It has actually improved transparency about data breaches, leading to a better data security in terms of practice and greater awareness for cybersecurity risks among businesses and even consumers in Australia. Yeah? Talk about India's personal data protection bill. Currently, it's probably passed, but it has engaged in terms of bringing significant changes for the data protection in terms of landscape. Its aim was to align India with global data protection standards and encourage responsible data handling in terms of the promotion and innovation of data-driven industries. And then talk about Israel's National Cyber Directorate. Yeah, we all know Israel for having what? Very good security, security guidelines or force, including they have a substantive legal approach in terms of cyber legal provisions that have established a cyber directorate, which has led to significant innovations in terms of technologies contributing to Israel's reputable cybersecurity, leadership in terms of that perspective. Japan, on the other hand, has an act that has to do with protection of personal information, what they call the APPI. The APPI has actually a significant impact on data protection in Japan. It has encouraged Japanese businesses to adapt more robust data security measures to comply with international data protection standards. Talk about Canada's Digital Privacy Act, what they call the DPA. The DPA has amended Canada's Personal Information Protection and the Electronic Documents Act to strengthen what they call privacy regulation. It has led to greater emphasis in terms of transparency, accountability, and even individual control over what? Personal information. Talk about United Kingdom's National Cybersecurity, what they call NCSC. The establishment of the NCSC and associated legal framework in the UK has actually enhanced the country's cybersecurity capability. It has encouraged the innovation in terms of threat detection and also response and incident management. So these examples, my friend, demonstrate how effective cyber provisions and laws have actually changed the world by shaping data privacy and cybersecurity practices and innovation in the various religions. And obviously they will help us highlight the importance of legal frameworks in terms of creating secure, transparent, and innovative digital environments. Yeah? Why am I emphasizing this? Because as I said, when you're talking about cyber, you may go a whole month, but we intend to do it in two sections. As I said, Volume 1, Volume 2. This is Volume 2, and we are trying to patch up as much as what we are. Brazil, on the other hand, has also got what they call the Brazil General Data Protection Law, the LGDPD, right, which is similar to the GDPR, and has had profound influences in terms of the data protection practices in Brazil across Latin America, and has even incentivized businesses and to implement stronger data protection measures and respect individual privacy rights. China, on the other hand, has also got what they call China's cybersecurity law, which China's cyber law has introduced strict regulations governing data handling, cross-border data transfers, and even the security of critical information in terms of infrastructure. It has even shaped the cybersecurity landscape in China and even encouraged the involvement of what they call domestic cybersecurity technologies. Another example would be Netherlands, what they call the Netherlands Data Protection Authority, or what they call Autorate Personengegevens. Okay, the Dutch Data Protection Authority, which has created protection in terms of the laws, but also in terms of regulations in Netherlands. And its actions have actually influenced data protection practices in Europe and even beyond, contributing to global focus in terms of data privacy. Then German is another one, where the so-called German Network Enforcement Act, NetzDZ, you know, some pronunciation may be an issue, but NetzDZ, in terms of which regulates the removal of illegal content from social media platforms. It has actually promoted social media companies to implement mechanisms for content moderation and also reporting, impacting the handling of online content globally. Yeah. So also Australia's Techno Communications and other legislation amendment assistance and actors as well. Although it was a bit controversial, it granted authorities in terms of power to request the assistance from tech companies in assessing what they call encrypted communications. You remember the iPhone case issue in America, where the Israelis had to open it up after Apple had refused. That sparked a lot of privacy debate and security, impacting global discussions on encryption and lawful access. Yeah. Then talk about the European Union's Network and Information Systems, what they call the NIS Directive. The NIS Directive requires critical infrastructure operations in terms of digital services providers to implement what they call cyber security measures, and it contributed to the strengthening and critical infrastructure in terms of resiliency, but also in terms of cyber security across the EU. Yeah. You may also want to talk about the Singapore's Payment Services Act, right? The Payment of Services Act, which regulated the payment services in terms of in Singapore, including cryptocurrency exchanges, and has also provided for regulatory credit in terms of fostered innovation in the digital payment and the fintech sectors as well. In the US, we may want to talk about the US Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, what they call the CISA. CISA's establishment and mandate have significantly influenced the US in terms of government approach for cybersecurity and incident responses in terms of critical infrastructure protection. Yeah, that becomes extremely important. Talk about your guys in the UAE, United Arab Emirates, cybersecurity laws. The UAE has introduced various laws and regulations to enhance cybersecurity, encouraging the development of cybersecurity ecosystems and even attracting cybersecurity investment. Yeah. Talk about Mexico. Mexico's federal law in terms of protection of personal data held by the private parties. Yeah. Yeah. The so-called LFPD-PPP has played a crucial role in terms of shaping data protection practices in Mexico, and has had its implications in terms of data transfer and privacy in the region. So, my friends, I have given you quite a number of examples to help you highlight the global impact of the effective provisions in terms of the law, in terms of showcasing their role, in terms of shaping cybersecurity practices, in terms of data protection, in terms of data innovations in the different parts of the world, in terms of cybersecurity and data protection, which have become very, very important today. And we just cannot let it go. So Uganda, ladies and gentlemen, Uganda can co-opt and even adapt effectively some of these cyber provisions and lessons from the examples that have been provided earlier. Yeah? And I'm going to give you certain things that have how Uganda may be able to do some of the things. In terms of a roadmap for Ugandans to consider, we need to study international best practices as a country. Uganda should thoroughly study the cyber laws and data protection regulations of other countries like the European Union, the GDPR, Singapore, for example, and the US, and other, to understand the principles and mechanisms that are actually proven effective. Yeah? Number two, we need to customize our legal frameworks, customize our legal frameworks. In other words, Uganda can adapt and customize elements of successful cyber laws to align them with its own legal and cultural context, if you like. And we should consider the specific needs and challenges within Uganda while addressing its legal framework. Yeah, that becomes important. Another aspect, we need to strengthen our data protection. Come sunshine, come rain. We know we have it, but we need to strengthen. Implement comprehensive data protection laws that safeguard individuals' rights to privacy in terms of providing a clear guideline for online, for data handling, for example, data breaches, notification, for example, and even consent mechanisms, as it were. Yeah. As a country, Uganda, we can enhance what they call cybersecurity regulations. Enhance them. Yeah. Develop and enforce what they call robust cybersecurity regulations that can help us to promote best practices across all sectors, including critical infrastructure protection and even incident reporting and cybersecurity audits. Yeah. As another advantage also, we probably maybe lessons or takeaway is promote public awareness. We need to launch public awareness in terms of campaigns to educate citizens, in terms of businesses and even government agencies about the importance of cybersecurity, in terms of data protection and their rights and responsibilities in terms of those digital space. Yeah, extremely important. These are takeaways. Yeah, we need to establish regulatory authorities, substantive regulatory authorities, create regulatory bodies and authorities that dedicate to cybersecurity and data protection oversight, similar to maybe the ones of Singapore, for example, cybersecurity agencies and European Data Protection Board, for example. We may have them, but do we feel them? Do they serve the purpose? Do they do the purpose? Are they well conversant with what they are doing? Those are the questions perhaps we need to ask. We need to have another aspect as a takeaway: international cooperation. Collaborate with international organizations such as Interpol and regional cyber security forums, and enhance information sharing and cooperation in combating these issues. Extremely, extremely important. We need to invest in what they call cyber capacity building, invest in training programs and law enforcement agencies such as lawyers, judges, and students of law. That's what I'm talking about. That is extremely important. I can go on and on and on and on and give different examples. But ladies and gentlemen, I would like to end here by saying this is extremely important. Thank you and God bless you. My name is Isaac Christopher Lubogo. Find our books at lubogo.org, suigenerisLawApp.com. God bless you.